Thank you. I'm Phil Lempert, and my job here today is relatively simple. It's number one, to empower you, number two, to enlighten you, and number three, to hopefully scare you a little bit, because we're really getting into a whole new era since COVID-19. First of all, what we have to understand is the consumer has changed. There's no question about that. Also, the retail landscape has changed and it continues to change. And matter of fact, when we look at the supply chain, we have a real problem there. And number three, technology. Technology is changing just about everything. And when we talk in terms of those three areas, it really drills down to mindfulness. It's being biohacking. It's doing everything very differently than we've ever done before. And the reality is, over the past 15 months, we've discovered one thing, that we all need each other. We need a little help from our friends. And we've seen that in the retail business. We've seen competitors working with competitors. We've seen different farmers working with different farmers. Everybody across the supply chain has really done a yeoman's job of making sure that we all understand we're in this together. Now, the reality is that today, it's the Wild West. We don't know where retail is going yet. We have some ideas. We can forecast some ideas. But today, it's still the Wild West. I want to talk about mindfulness because we've heard a lot about mindfulness over the past period of time. And Morgan Spurlock, you might remember him from that little movie called Super Size Me, has come up with a word that I absolutely love. And for me, this has everything to do with the food world. It's transparalocalicious. Transparent, being local, and being delicious. And for every food retailer, whether it be a supermarket or whether it be a restaurant, if they follow this, they're guaranteed to have success. What we see today are more consumers reading labels than ever before and understanding what they say and making their choices based on what's on that label. So it's more important than ever before that not only manufacturers, but retailers understand the kind of information that consumers are looking for. There are certain retailers, even pre-COVID, that decided that they want to do something special, and CVS is one of those, where they created an entire program called Snacks That Give Back. And what they did is they built end cap displays for those products who donate a portion of their profits to charity. We've seen this work before. Paul Newman is a perfect example of it, but we've never seen it at retail. And we're starting to see retailers step up more than ever before and really try to align their values with their consumers' values. And when that happens, guess what? Again, we have success. We also see another trend when it comes to mindfulness, which is all about being vegan. And we're seeing even vegan vacations taking place now in over 600 hotels across the world. We're seeing car dealers. We're seeing different properties such as Food Maven that buys food when it's close to expiration date and sells it at a discount to different retailers. It's all about what's in our heart and our soul. And this started before COVID-19. But now, because of COVID-19, it has accelerated. So right now, we're in this scare mode. Consumers are scared. They're going into a supermarket, they've got to wear a mask. They have to talk to somebody behind plexiglass. They see somebody washing down the check stand every half hour. They're seeing electrostatic sprayers cleaning shopping carts. They are scared. Our job collectively is to change them and be inspiring to them. Creating a retail environment where someone feels comfortable going in, that it's pleasurable. Pre-pandemic, we used to go to the supermarket about 2.4 times a week to buy our foods. We used to spend over 20 minutes per shopping trip. Today, we go, if we're lucky, once a week, and we want to get out in 10 minutes. We've got to change that. We've got to make that retail experience better than it ever has been. When we look at the consumer today, they're being driven by factors that we never thought about before. Social consciousness, health and wellness, enhanced nutrition, life hacking, and supporting local. These are the tenets that retailers must follow if in fact they want to align their values. And when we go back to in-store, we've got to remember all those senses. Consumers want to buy food. They want to buy practically everything with all 5 senses being attacked, being empowered, being enlightened, being inspired. We can't just rely on our stores stacking things high and selling it cheap. That's not what shoppers want. Shoppers want, especially since COVID-19, they want a much more pleasurable shopping relationship. And they want to connect with their food, both physically and intellectually. And I know what you're going to say, hey, I can't even go to Costco and get samples anymore on Saturday. That will change. That will definitely change. We might have a whole different way of sampling, but people want to connect both intellectually and physically. And we take a look at a company like Aldi, who doesn't have one store in Korea, but they sell through Alibaba. So what do they do to empower people? They had a fashion show, and this fashion show was all about food, and all the models were dressed in food. And if you look at the corners of those runways, those were people who paid hundreds of dollars to eat a meal sitting on that runway. That established Aldi's presence there, being very tactile and really communicating through all the senses. One of the other technologies that is changing the supermarket forever and food forever is 3D printed food. Just imagine when you walk into a supermarket, you see that beautiful bakery case filled with 10s, 20, 30 cakes ready for sale, where you can just put "Happy Birthday, Phil" on it. Well, that's a waste, because at the end of the day, a lot of those cakes have to be donated to food banks or thrown out. What if I just go into a supermarket and there's a kiosk, or I can do it on my iPhone, and I can designate the kind of ingredients that I want in my cake? It can be gluten-free. It could be sugar-free. It could be extra sugar. It could be anything that I want it to be. And as I'm going up and down the store aisles, that cake is being made just for me. It eliminates waste, and it gives me what I want from a nutrition standpoint and from a taste standpoint. And we're going to see more 3D printed foods than ever before. We already can buy a 3D printer to make pizza at home. Why not a whole variety of different foods? One of the biggest changes that have come because of the pandemic have to do with farming. And when we look at how farms are operated, we have people working shoulder to shoulder in the fields. We have them housed in very small spaces. And frankly, the way they work is if one person doesn't feel well or has a high temperature, that entire crew gets let go. So as a result, no one gets paid. So nobody wants to be sick. They either don't show up for work or they don't tell anybody. That has got to change. And it has to change because even the USDA says that because of climate change, we're going to have more pandemics. We're going to have more weather situations. We've just gone through all the wildfires in California, and guess what? Now the farmers are faced with yet another drought in California. We have got to change our method of farming. We've got to change the way we buy our foods, and we have to do it quickly. And if you look in the state of New York and Maine, they have something called Fresh Food, which is an app that relates that customer directly to a farmer. And I'm not talking about a CSA. I'm talking about where you can order specific items from that farmer and get to know that farmer and build a relationship. And that's good for the farmer and it's good for the consumer. And one of the aspects of COVID-19 that's been very positive for farmers is they've been building those relationships not only directly with consumers, but also directly with supermarkets. So that holistic process of the supply chain from farm to table is going through an evolution and a change. We also have a major problem. We're going to have, 10 billion people on this planet, and we've got to move indoors. We've got to have indoor farming. And this is one example of a building that is being built now that has 1/3 of the building indoor farming, 2/3 offices. And we're going to see more and more of that. And when you think about certain cities like Chicago, even virtually like Chicago, there's going to be a lot of open office space there. And as a result, why not grow certain crops indoors? It's easy to do. And keep in mind that what you've got is you've got the lights on 24 hours a day. So the crops grow faster. You've got a controlled environment. You're shipping fresher produce. Imagine the absurdity that 96% of all the lettuce in the US is grown in California. So in order to get that lettuce, that bag of lettuce that you might be paying $2 or $3 for to Chicago, imagine the carbon footprint. We've all heard the stories about food safety nightmares and recalls. Why not grow it downtown Chicago in a controlled environment where it can be fresher? It's not on a truck for days. It could be less expensive. Certainly from a food safety standpoint, it's better. And you know something? It tastes better as well. Consumers want to align with retailers. Consumers want to align with brands. And the more transparent that you as a retailer are and you as a brand are, the more loyal you're going to have a shopper. And what surprisingly is it's not just about fresh food. It's about packaged foods as well. So those unemotional jars and cans and bottles that are in the center of the store, consumers want transparency about those products as well. Who's making them? How are they made? Where are they made? That's what's important to today's consumer. And we're also moving into a whole new era of truth in advertising. So it goes well beyond transparency. And we're starting to see brands run TV commercials against their competitors and really sharing the truth. Take a look at this clip from a commercial that's running right now.
How do we keep the bull away from our eggs? It's simple. We give our hens some space. A lot of it. At Vital Farms, our hens get 108 square feet per hen. How much room does a cage-free hen get? About one square foot per hen. I know.
So when we look at this controversy about cage-free, and we see that most retailers and most brands have committed to going cage-free, it's absolutely absurd. It raises the price. I was talking to the CEO of a major supermarket chain in the Midwest, and he was telling me why he will not commit to only having cage-free eggs. He shared that close to 30% of his customers are on food assistance programs. And their primary source of animal protein comes from eggs. And if he went cage-free, he would have to raise the price of his eggs, and it would then make that animal protein much less affordable for his customers. We're going to see more truth in advertising than ever before. And we're going to see a whole new way of thinking about nutrition and biotechnology than ever before. Let's remember that the way we eat has a lot to do with the way we live. And if we're smart, we can reverse certain diseases. We can reverse cancers and heart disease and diabetes. And the list goes on by just having a proper diet. And that's something that we all need to make a commitment to. And then we've got cellular agriculture that everybody is promoting that, oh, cellular agriculture, that's the future, whether it's a beef patty, whether it's the salmon that's about ready to come out, whether it's other vegetables that are being created. Cellular agriculture is a new science, and we've got to remember that. And we've got to remember that when a consumer goes into a supermarket and they pick up a package of one of these new products, they read the ingredients. And it's not enough just to say that I'm plant-based. But when you read ingredients that might be GMO or not pronounceable, shoppers put that product down. So we've got to communicate properly what cellular agriculture is and what it's not, and the safety aspect of it, especially as we're seeing more and more consumers concerned about having a cellular-driven, GMO-driven salmon that's going to appear in our fish areas. The areas of concern for all of us should be heart health, should be bone health, should be gut health, and brain health. And brain health is probably one of the most important ones that we're going to see over the next couple years really grow. EPA and DHA and omega-3s are going through the roof. And what's so interesting about this, and those of you that might have small kids can relate, you want your kids to be the smartest kids ever. You want them to go to the best schools ever. Northwestern, Stanford, Harvard. But also at the other end of the spectrum, what we're seeing is we're seeing an aging population. You've seen the TV commercials for, the supplements that you can take to improve your memory. Well, we can do all this through our foods for our little kids and for our older kids as well. And this is going to be one of the biggest trends that we're going to see in the supermarket. Well-being is critical. This is a restaurant in London. You can probably tell the name of it when you look at the lights. It's called the Acorn. And what they've done is they've followed suit of what we've seen happen in this country, where supermarkets have added retail dietitians to help consumers. Acorn has a dietitian on staff who will come over to your table, who will talk about your dietary needs and then make recommendations off the menu for that. People want information, accurate information. And when we look at biohacking, it's all about DNA. We've seen that. We've seen now that for relatively low cost, we can get a little kit that tells us about our DNA and can tell us about the foods that we should be buying and consuming for my own personal DNA. Personalized food has been talked about for a while, but now it's a reality. And look at how easy it is.
So I took to searching the internet and found out that a person's DNA could actually translate into actionable nutrition recommendations, and it wasn't that expensive. So I ordered a kit from GenoPalette, and it was so simple. All I had to do was spit in a test tube and fill out a questionnaire about my health history, preferences, and habits. Then they analyzed my DNA against genetic markers linked to health and diet. From there, they gave me a list of the types of food I could eat and the foods I should stay away from, completely changing the way I looked at food. And all of it was based on my own specific genetic traits that shape my body's unique nutritional needs. It changed my kitchen, my family, and my way of life.
Technofoodology is a new term that we're seeing a lot of. And it's all about artificial intelligence and creating, those. I'll give you a perfect example. I happen to love pistachios. So I've got an Alexa on my desk. And I'm talking pre-pandemic, but now it's getting back to that. If I'm running out of pistachios, I can just tell my Alexa to order pistachios. Pre-pandemic, it was delivered within 2 hours. Now it takes a day, but it will get back to 2 hours. How are you using AI to communicate with shoppers, to satisfy shoppers' needs more than ever before? And When we take a look at the numbers, 120 million US households have broadband. 60% of them have smart devices at home. How is this going to change your business? How are you incorporating your business into this? Or do you just have blinders on and say, that is never going to affect my business? Well, if you're saying that, you're wrong. Because we're also talking about the Internet of Things. We're talking about smart refrigerators and even smart trash cans. And just imagine the next refrigerator that you buy or the next kitchen that you remodel. So the refrigerator has a scanner built into the side of the door. All the shelves are scales. So every time I take milk in and out of that refrigerator, it knows how much I've consumed. And then I'm going to get a pop-up on my phone or right on the front of the refrigerator that says, you're going to run out of milk in 2 days. Should I order it for you? Or do you want to pick it up? These are the things that are not only coming in the future, but they're here today. And consumers want this kind of convenience and this kind of control, because I've gone online and picked the retailer that I want to consume that milk from and told them that when it comes 2 days away, let me know. I love talking about supermarkets. I love walking up and down the aisles of supermarkets, even now when I have to wear a mask. And what does the future look like? We've seen just about every retailer observing Aldi for the past few years and trying to emulate what they've done. And what Aldi has done so well is really focused on millennials and Generation Z. And they've done it 2 ways. Keep in mind that 96% of everything that's sold in an Aldi is under their own label. And when you walk in the store, you have a list of over 100 ingredients that they promise never to use in their private label. Those ingredients that they know you don't want. And they proudly post it up there. And for millennials and Generation Z, that's important. But what's even more important is quality and value. And that is magic when it comes to Aldi. And that's what every retailer is trying to emulate. And if we look at online, I'm going to talk a bit more about online in a moment, we're starting to see retailers try to move customers away from third-party services. This is an actual screenshot of Albertsons on Instacart. And what they say is, you're not going to get a sale price. The price is going to be higher than it's in store. You're not going to be able to use your frequent shopper card program. You're not going to get special deals. Why should I not just go to Albertsons and buy online directly from them versus a third party who owns that relationship instead of Albertsons owning it and me having to pay more? What we've discovered during the pandemic is more and more people bought online and had it delivered. Of course, nobody wanted to go into a store. And then they got their credit card bills. And then they saw the tip that was mandatory and the service fee that was mandatory and not being able to use those coupons. And they had sticker shock. So now what we're seeing are retailers across the board doing it themselves. And when we look at technology, there's so much that can be done as it relates to the internet. I want to show you what Tesco did in South Korea. And when you watch this, think about this as being a really smart, cool idea.
Idea. Let the store come to the people. We created virtual stores, hoping to blend into people's everyday lives. Our first try was subway stations. Although virtual, the displays were exactly the same as actual stores, from the display to the merchandise. Only one thing was different. You use smartphones to shop.
Wow. Just imagine that. Just imagine being able to order your groceries while you're waiting for a subway train and have them delivered by the time you get home. What consumers want what retailers want is friction-free. Whether it's in-store or online, it's time to do that supermarket hacking, moving from life hacking to supermarket hacking. This is a painting that I had done back in 1984. I had met an artist in Miami by the name of Herbert Hoffer, and we sat down and we spoke for about 2 days about what my vision would be of the supermarket in the year 2000, 16 years in the future. Now, we haven't gotten there yet, but we're getting closer. So I want you to think about the future of a supermarket. The supermarket today is about 40,000 square foot. Let's cut it in half. The back half is 20,000 square foot. It is fully robotic, fully automated. And in that back section are all those unemotional cans and jars, all those products that I love that are branded, whether it's store brand or national brand, that I just buy on a regular basis. I go to order online. The first step when I go to that retailer's website is to make an appointment to go in-store shopping so that they can control how many people are there. So I'm going to say I'm going to go Thursday at 7 p.m. It then is going to bring me to that part of the website where I can buy all those backroom items that the robots are going to fill. The front of the store is then all fresh foods. It's Betty the baker. It's Bob the butcher. If we take a look at the complaints from third-party suppliers of groceries, number one is produce. Number two is meats. We want to select those ourselves. So by getting rid of all those other items, I can cut down my shopping trip time. There's no question about that. And when you think about the absurdity of how we go shopping today, I've got a shopping list of 20, 25 items. I have to walk past over 40,000 items to get those 25 items. That's not efficient. And also, let's not forget that retailers lose about $10 per order for online delivery. It is not sustainable. We've got to change it, and we've got to bring back fun like this into the supermarket. And there's supermarkets around the world that are doing phenomenal things. For example, this one in Milan, the supermarket of the future. What you can see is the consumers holding up a piece of produce to what looks like a mirror. Well, that's actually artificial intelligence. And it's telling that consumer when that produce item was picked, what farm it came from, if in fact there were any pesticides on it. It can even print a recipe. That's the kind of evolution and innovation that we need to have. Kohl's is a great supermarket chain, and what they discovered is they had a lot of customers who had children on the autistic spectrum that couldn't go shopping with their kids because of the noise level. So what do? 2 hours a week, they turn off their loudspeakers. They don't stock their shelves. They make it a quiet hour so these parents can shop with their kids. Click and collect is our only option. There's no question about it. It is sustainable. It's what somebody wants. Even pre-COVID-19, people were nervous when a stranger would come up to their door and deliver anything. Today, it's even worse. And think about the convenience. The convenience is I have a 2-hour window, so if I'm a mom and I'm trying to juggle kids between soccer and ballet and everything else, guess what? That 2-hour window doesn't work for me. So being able to go online and order in that supermarket of the future that I described, that where you go and you click and you collect and then you shop for 10 minutes for all those fresh foods, that's what we're going to see in the future. There's no question about it. It is all about the relationship as it relates to retailers today. And I want to show you a clip of what a supermarket did a couple years ago for Christmas. And as you're watching this clip, see if it gets to your heart and look at the faces of the shoppers. And do you think that any of these shoppers would ever shop anywhere else after having this experience? And the answer is no. Those shoppers are going to go to that store all the time. Now, there's 3 questions that you should be asking yourself during this conference. First of all, what's the next big trend? What is that issue that we're seeing? Right now, at least in grocery, it's plant-based everything. But what's coming next? And train yourself 24/7, 365 days a year to be thinking about what's next, and then go out and solve it. What are the 3 things about consumers, your consumers, that you don't know? And find out. And then cross those off the list and look for another 3. Consumers are evolving and they're changing constantly. And if in fact we're going to satisfy their needs, we have to do the same thing. And what's the innovation that you've seen in the past year that you can steal from, that you can build on, that you can make a better experience, that you can have a wow? And I'll tell you about mine. Mine actually goes back a couple of years. I'd been on 3 planes, got to a small town, got there about midnight, took a taxi to the hotel, walked into the hotel. And as I'm walking, the floor, which was marble, now is like a very heavy plexiglass that you can see through. And as I move up to the desk to check in, guess what happens? I'm now standing on a movie. And the movie is a couple in bed. And you know, when you sleep with your partner, you pull the pillow and you pull the blanket and so on, and they're asleep. And I'm saying, wow. This is so cool. This is one of the coolest things that I've ever seen. So I get up to my room, and because it's so late, I say, I'm going to just take a shower and then go to sleep. So I go into the bathroom, pull back the shower curtain, and in my bathtub is a 3.5-foot high red plastic penguin. So for the first time, I use the phone that's in a hotel bathroom. And I call downstairs and I say, I know it's late, and I hate to bother you, but somebody left a 3.5-foot high red plastic penguin in my bathtub. And the desk clerk said, I know. Congratulations. And I said, maybe you didn't hear me right. He said, no, I do. We have 10 of those. And what we do every night is we put a different one in a different person's room. And if you're lucky enough to get that red plastic penguin, we're going to send up a free bottle of wine. So I said, you better send up that free bottle of wine because there's a 3.5-foot high red plastic penguin in my bathtub. Wow. So what's your wow? What are you doing to make your customer have a stronger relationship with you? To feel great about coming to your store? To really build that loyalty that you want to do, that you want to protect so much? What's your wow? That's what you need to leave this conference this year with. Understanding how retail has changed. Understanding how you can give your shoppers a wow. Thank you for joining me.